Hi guys, welcome back to Tigre Gitana. My name is Abby, and today we are doing the weekly chakra healing video. I apologize for missing last week. I was kind of hermiting and I kind of disconnected from everything, just taking a moment to breathe. So yeah, so I didn't post any videos last week, but this week is going to be kind of like a quick ride because I have a lot of things that will be getting posted this week. So stay tuned for that, especially because it is the end of the month. So it's the empties, and it's also the Botanica haul, and it's like a plethora of other things. The Botanica Essentials video is still coming, and I'm almost done working on the music for the Sekhmet meditation video that's coming. So lots of stuff happening, currently speaking. Yes, so we're gonna get started. I'm going to be using the Game of Thrones tarot deck for this, and the reason why is because last night was Game of Thrones, and I think I'm going to be using this deck for a hot minute because that episode was everything. It was so good. There were so many really cool messages, and I feel like I'm going to end up making a video on Melisandre, just like as a like basically because especially because in this tarot deck she comes off as a high priestess, and just like kind of talking about her journey, especially with as a priestess, as pretty much a witch on the show. Is just, she's so bomb, even though she's made mistakes before as well, but she's such a bomb character. All the women in the show are really powerful people. So it's just like, it was such a good episode, and I'm not going to, I mean, if you didn't watch the episode, that's your fault, because there may or may not be spoilers in this reading about yesterday's episode. Bottom of the deck is going to be the Five of Wands and the Page of Wands, which is accurate. This is the way I feel about last night's episode, actually. So we're gonna get started. I'm gonna keep it short, just because the messages are really just smooth. I feel like this week they're just really strong. I do have the Akashic Records open, just a heads up. So for the root chakra, the blockage is the 8 of Swords and the 10 of Pentacles. So there does feel like there's kind of a restriction between what we want materially in the physical realm and us actually having it, and the restriction, it seems to be very well our minds. It's kind of preventing us from achieving the higher success that we could be achieving if we actually put in all of our kind of focus, all of our will into that space. We're kind of blocking ourselves in many ways from achieving abundance in all the forms that we could achieve it. It's almost like our potential, we can see it, we see the dream, we see the messages, we see a lot of this reading. It's definitely creative. There's some people that are kind of struggling to kind of live with the fact that they're meant to be a little bit more creative, whether it's in the arts or anything that has to do with creating. If you have specific placements that kind of trigger your, like, especially with technology, with Uranus and Aquarius placements, that trigger that need to create something new, something fresh, but you don't have the budget, you don't have an investor, you don't have the budget for it, stuff like that. Like, it's a very like it's a harsh pill to swallow, because it's almost like there's so much potential here where you can fund your viewpoint, not even with money, but also not with time, because you're giving that to other people because you have to. That's the way society's built. So there is this restriction, and mentally you see yourself in this cage, which is here. There is this mental cage that is very reflective of what's happening in the physical realm right now. So there's potential, but it's not working. Best way to heal that this week, we have the Magician and we have the 9 of Swords. So there is a kind of mental transmutation that needs to happen. This is Mercury, by the way. This is very a Legua energy. Some of you guys need to do like a uncrossing spell work or some sort of opening work this week, just to kind of get yourself clear in the head. We do have a moon in Taurus this week, so there's that. There's gonna be, I feel, I mean, it's exalted in Taurus anyway, so that energy is really like good for money and that root chakra specifically. So there's kind of a this week's just like, hey, okay, we get the negative connotations that have been happening, the placements, why are you feeling the way you're feeling, but it's kind of time to remind yourself that you are the magician, so you can will yourself to change this. You have power in this ultimately, so you're able to really kind of take it upon yourself to do something about this. So there is like a mind over matter type of vibe to this week, especially with the root chakra. A lot of it, once you change your perspective, everything changes. I feel like I keep saying that. I've been saying that for like over a month. I'm not necessarily here, but to different people that I know that have sought me out for advice or whatever the case may be. It's just always been like mind over matter. There is an emphasis on the power of your mind over the physical realm, and how that affects long-term wise. So there is just this is hard because I do feel like a lot of people will be in a gunk, especially financially. They'll feel like there's no way out and stuff like that, but there is ways for you to address it, and ultimately you have to remember that you are not up against like a brick wall with a sword in your face. You do have the ability to change the circumstances, and I feel like some of you need to start kind of looking at the loophole. I'm getting that message really clearly. There is this the trickster energy of Mercury, that Gemini like sneaky kind of vibe to it. It's a very low-key energy, but there is kind of like, there's a loophole. Somebody will find a loophole. Like if you actively look for it instead of like letting yourself feel like you're actually restricted and you're like beating yourself up about this, you might actually find a loophole that will get you out of the situation that you're in, that you've been struggling with for quite a while. So it's definitely the time to have mind over matter, because when you're actually being like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna do something about this, when you're actively saying you've decided you're gonna do something about this, everything kind of changes. Some of you will be talking to a lawyer and it'll change something. There is like, something was found. There's definitely a loophole that will be kind of found, a way that you can see yourself out of a situation that you're in. I could definitely see that. It's coming up strong as a message. Some of you might just get overwhelmed by the negative aspects of how whatever the situation is making you feel, and you might just continue to drown in it. So there is kind of a mirroring effect. There is a duality to the root chakra for this week. By the time I see you guys at the end next week, the moon will be in Gemini, so we'll catch up on these mercurial kind of placements. But there is kind of a need to move intelligently now. There's kind of progression that's like, we're moving a little bit different now. So yeah, that's kind of the message I'm getting for the root chakra. For the for the sacral chakra, we have the Hangman and the King of Swords. So again, there is that stuck energy that's showing up in the root chakra, and it has to do with the mind. It's definitely in many ways a prison, and it's interesting that for the healing we got the Sun, the Hermit, and the Seven of Wands, because the Hermit represents that it was a very similar energy to the Hangman, as far as having to retreat, reanalyze, readdress, and gain that knowledge, but actively having to do something about it. The Hangman and the King of Swords are the answer to the healing, but they're in the blockage. So there is kind of a need to stop looking at something as a negative thing and look at it as an opportunity, even if it might be a little bit overwhelming, the information, and it might make you want to hide to a certain extent. There is a need to still address it head on, to be bold, and to accept the fact that it is going to affect your ego. Ultimately, whatever comes out of it, there will be a transformation in the ego here. But with the Hermit, that Virgo energy, the analytical energy, again, it's like that mercurial energy. Like you have Gemini and Virgo that come from that Mercury placement, right? So from Mercury, you have two things. you have the childlike Gemini, and then you have the very analytical Virgo. So how does each of them trick their way into different situations, or how do each of them find the loophole? Gemini does it by poking at the trying to open every door they can see, trying to go into barriers that into different areas where they're told they cannot go. They push the envelope, they push a little bit farther to see how far they can say, how much they can do, all of these little things. Well, Virgo will analyze the situation almost like a lawyer does and be like, that's the loophole. And so there is this energy of like, you can beat this with your head, you just didn't realize that you can. With the solar plexus, you have the Ace of Swords and the King of Cups. So again, the mind over matter. There is, even with the way it's making us feel, it's like you'll feel a lot better when you're feeling a little bit more comfortable, like on an emotional level. You're gonna feel a lot better when you feel like you found that. It's like the aha kind of moment in the solar plexus. Our will is getting blocked by the potential of you actually beating this thing, whatever it is, and actually getting what you want. For a lot of people, again, I keep getting that creative thing. I feel like a lot of people are going through a transition right now, especially our generation, where they're kind of having to process the inevitable fact that is the change, the impact and the change to how our generation is meant to live versus how the past generations have left it for us to live, and what can we change about it? How can we be different? How can we still survive and live and have a good life while changing the system? And there's a deep transition that's happening here. The best way to heal, we have the Seven of Pentacles and the Page of Swords. So there is almost like some of you are getting called to change that system, whether it's by creating something or working for the government, creating something that helps society in a larger scale, that challenges and pushes the boundaries politically, creatively. It's on every single scale. Our generation is now, it's like Saturn like showed up and it was like, hey, I need you guys to kind of show up now, especially because I'm in Capricorn. So it's like we're at the midway point next year, you know, last year, and then I move into Aquarius, which is going to be that I'm still going to be in my own energy for literally 6 years. So there is a kind of theme of grounding and changing tradition with Capricorn and kind of updating it to the way our generation is grasping that. And then with Uranus, with that Aquarius energy, with Saturn in Aquarius, that's coming, that's approaching, that upgrading, whether it be the technology of it, how that affects our generation, how much we pay, like what is better for our society, for our generation globally, what we're going to do about it, like all of these things. There's a lot of people who are getting called right now to kind of be leaders in their communities, leaders in their areas, leaders of whether it be states, in whatever fashion. Some people are getting kind of called to write, to speak, to kind of challenge the mind, the perspective, to address their heartache, but in a different way, in a creative way, to address their darkness, to how our generation does it, instead of the whole shaming, especially with divine masculine energy, how we shame men in different ways. Sorry, all these, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been in a long run-on sentence, but it's just that the messages are coming that quickly. But the way that men are like kind of shamed with their egos, and they still have the highest suicide rate, like even that, like how is that transitioning? How is these expectations changing for us socially? How does that affect the divine feminine energy? How does that get balanced out in our bodies equally? How are we seeking that balance? So there is kind of like if you've gotten the call, best way to heal your willpower this week, because that is the solar plexus, your willpower, is to kind of take on this intention that it's kind of like telling you to show up. You have a calling to do, so you now have to do it, and you've known what it is for a while. So it's kind of like, what are the steps how you're going to get there? Do you need to collaborate with other people? Do you need to create the system that changes that? Like, what is it, even at a microscopic scale, and how everything can kind of have like a butterfly effect into change? How are you going to do that? So there is kind of like in many different areas change happening. and a lot of people kind of have to come out of the darkness in order to see that. Some people won't be able to see the potential of what they're doing till later on, and they might feel like they're going against everything, but it's a necessary process, if that makes any sense. For our heart chakra, we have the Ten of Swords and the Seven of Swords in reverse, and then the Two of Pentacles upright. So for the heart chakra, it's interesting because the healing is just so powerful for this week. For the heart chakra, there's definitely like balance that's being asked of you. There is a blockage of the balance that's happening, but there is a balance that's being asked. Some people do need to open the Akashic records because there's definitely a betrayal that happens with whatever the situation is. It's been happening for a while, and the problem with this situation is that it keeps happening because it hasn't gotten healed properly yet. And so because it hasn't been addressed in every lifetime, and it just keeps coming up, not all of them, but a good amount of them, it just keeps coming up when those energies are in the same vicinity and they're able to kind of interconnect and intertwine. But there is kind of a betrayal that's happening, or happened, or will happen currently in this lifetime, that is based on the fact that something is not closed off. It hasn't ended. It hasn't concluded. It's still written. Whether it be in your soul contract or not, it's still written as a trauma and a karma that just hasn't gotten fixed. So it's like on a replay. It's just like a broken record. So there is kind of like something that's actually blocking your destiny based on something else that has not gotten healed. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what you're meant to do, but that is blocking you from emotionally being clear, at least having this space clear. The best way to heal that this week, have the Star in reverse and death. And let's just talk about the Game of Thrones episode last night for a second. What do we say to the god of death? Not today, right? Okay, so with the Star in reverse, the Star hinting at the bigger picture, which is that this is not part of your destiny in this lifetime. Whatever the situation was that just keeps coming up in the same way, it's not part of this lifetime as far as something that it's major in your life for you to do. No, it's just karma that you're paying for, but it has not gotten healed properly, and you definitely need to heal it. I do recommend getting an Akashic reading done for this, specifically for the heart chakra. Remember that the heart chakra is how we and where we heal our past lives from. So if you guys need to book a reading, my website is down below. You guys can book a reading with me if you guys want to do that. But there definitely is a hint at addressing that constant loop of pain that just keeps reoccurring with whomever this is. It just keeps going in a cycle, and it's just almost like you can't understand why. And a lot of it, when you heal the Akashic records, is understanding why. You get that relief factor. It's like, oh, that's why that was happening. So there is there's no understanding, but the only upright card is the Two of Pentacles, that balance in the physical realm that needs to occur in order for you to move forward. So all of this is happening where you cannot see. You can only feel and think about and exhaust yourself about. But on the physical realm, it is not balanced out. So with death, this is that Aquarius Scorpio energy right here. With death, asking you to address those like past traumas so you can move forward clearly into the next thing, because it's kind of like, again, it's kind of like that Game of Thrones episode last night. It's like everybody kind of thought, well, I wouldn't say everybody thought, but it's kind of like the Night King and the whole White Walkers were presumed to be the villains for like the whole entire series. So, and they really made them in the past couple of episodes, they embodied them as death themselves, especially because restoration is it's just death itself. That's what they ended up embodying. And so when you have that kind of energy, and then on the third episode, there's three more episodes left to the series, and on the third episode of this season, you end up killing the villain that was coming for the past 8 seasons. It's like, and there's 3 more episodes, so it's not over yet. And that's kind of the thing. It's like there's a deeper purpose here. Like you need to process this past thing that's been meaning to come, that keeps coming reoccurrently in your life, from other past lives that you have perished in, and all of the stuff that you are now needing to address. There's kind of like, before there's progress, before you can handle your business that you've actually been trying, because remember, the show is called Game of Thrones, okay? It was always about the throne. What the Night King does not care about no throne. He just wants everybody dead. So that's kind of the point here. Is like, there's stuff that's following you from other stuff that doesn't even have anything to do with what you're meant to do in this lifetime. And it's really interesting because it's kind of like, this is not part of my journey, but I still need to address this. So the way you're gonna have to do that is by going into the records, and healing this past life, especially through your heart, because your heart really needs to be clear on this for you to be able to decide on moving forward, to clear the path for you to make the rest of the decisions that you need to do for the rest of it. Because it's just like, there's so much work that needs to be done, and it's just coming off as that, like, all these pentacles are just like, we have work to do. We do not have time to be putting into these other areas. Like, it's almost like cleaning your house, and you found like your closet was just like the one thing that you ignored, and you just kept ignoring it, and now you really have to go in and gunk it out. There's really that energy this week. So yeah, that's what I'm getting for the heart chakra. Okay, so for the throat chakra, we have the Knight of Cups, the Eight of Pentacles, and the Queen of Wands. So again, this is energy of work. There's this energy, there is this creative energy as well, and then there's the willpower. So for the throat chakra, there are some people that are really getting called creatively, whether it's to speak for injustice about something. Some people definitely will be going into politics, but others are fighting for something else. This is something that they're passionate about. Again, I definitely see some politics happening in here, but this is definitely, for other people, is something more, something that they're passionate about. So anything in the realm of art, writing, screenwriting, Broadway, painting, anything in the realm of art, music, all of this, there is kind of like a need to work on your creativity, to really put your will power, your emotions, to unleash, to kind of have a therapeutic moment with yourself, working on that thing that is your calling. And it just hasn't been happening. There's been a kind of an ignorance kind of thing going on. Best way to heal that is the Moon and the Six of Wands. The Moon hinting at that 12th house, that subconscious, that creativity, the secrets, your deeper self. In many ways, it reflects your ego, because it shines a light on what you see, how you see yourself, and how you want things to be, how you imagine things to be, your imagination, how you create, how you see the truth unfolding of you, of different situations, of the universe you can really create, how you can share that kind of, but not really, because you don't share your 12th house with anybody. So there is kind of like a kind of a blessing and a success, just hiding in that 12th house, in that it's just like stuck in your throat. There's just so much power here waiting to be communicated, because don't forget, the throat chakra is something that's meant to be shared. Ultimately, it is how you release, using these muscles to release, even if it's air, sound coming out of it, and that sound is very powerful, because they can direct your will and what you've decided to do. So there's like a lot of power happening in the throat chakra, but it definitely has to do with people addressing their dreams in many ways, especially with the Moon, this Pisces energy. The Moon is in Pisces right now, actually, so that's interesting. So there is a lot of people that need to do some, it's a lot of Mercury, like throat chakra, creativity, like there's a lot of potential here. People starting their own businesses, it's just, there's a lot, and it's just not, it hasn't been properly been getting addressed. So there's like a call of like, hey, let yourself just flow in here for a second, like just let it be, please. For the third eye, we have the Nine of Cups in reverse and the Eight of Cups in reverse. So the third eye, you guys know, it's intuition, and there is kind of like this release would kind of set you up for this higher success, higher connection to yourself, embodiment, but a better embodiment of your higher self as well. And you can't see how releasing what you need to release is actually the key to pushing you in that direction. So that's what the blockage is. The best way to heal that, we have the Five of Swords and Justice in reverse, which has to do completely with addressing karma, because it's almost like you've been, like, the Five of Swords in this is representative of how this has been almost like a fly, like 5 flies in your room, and they just keep bothering you, and you just keep swatting them out instead of actually trying to get them out of your room, and just keep trotting them away, and they come in and they just bother you, and it's just kind of like a constant reminder, like the situation, especially with your heart chakra, that keeps coming up constantly, and you keep being stuck in the same loop constantly. You keep having to learn this lesson and then not healing it properly constantly, because this karma has not been getting served correctly, it hasn't been processed correctly. It's like you've been through the thing, and you understand, essentially, some of you understand what it is, some of you don't, but you haven't healed it properly, and so here we are. You're still stuck in this loop. You're still mentally in a hot mess. You're still hurting other people based on your treatment of what's going on with you. There's a lot of people taking out their frustration on other people as well this week. There's a lot of people kind of, I definitely see abuse here too. There is just this, there's the overuse, and then there's the detachment that I don't like. This is kind of, in a way, reminds me of Aquarius energy, but the shadow side of Aquarius energy, when it's just very detached, very one note. It's almost like disconnecting yourself completely from your emotional state, so you kind of move, it's almost robotic, and it's a very annoying thing to do because it's not genuine, and it's very inhuman in many ways. So for the third eye, there's definitely a need to just, like, some of you guys need to forgive yourselves about some things that you've done, but that requires you to change it. Once you decide to kind of address that part of yourself, you're gonna have to change something as well. There has to be a consequence to yourself. Like, if you decide, oh my god, I apologize for doing that, that was not in my character, what you believe in, you're gonna have to not do that ever again. Like, there is kind of an abuse happening here, but you're kind of getting heavy-handed because of it. So if some of you have been kind of doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, that's karmically wrong, it's humanely wrong, spiritually wrong, whether it's from work or whatever it is, there is something that you know you're not supposed to be doing, you will be paying the price for it gravely. For the crown chakra, we have the Wheel of Fortune and the Tower. And this is almost in reflection to that consequence of what happens, but there's a lot of stuff getting shaken up, quite frankly. Especially because Taurus season, in Uranus being a Taurus, there's just a lot of shakeups. The Tower is Uranus, so there's just a lot of shakeups going on, things that you might not notice. I don't know why I'm getting this, but there's kind of like a huge potential for like earthquake or something. Like, there's just, like, this week it's just something that kind of shakes you up, like kind of wakes you up to your surroundings, is what I'm seeing. That you kind of, like, it breaks you off from the robotic 9-to-5 thing, and it's just like, whoa, wait, it makes you kind of connect, and that's because your crown chakra is blocked. There is kind of like this, there is no connection there, so you're not connected to your higher self, you're not embodying that energy, that divine connection, and so it's kind of like you get triggered. There is a triggering this week that's kind of going to jolt you. It's, in many ways, you've been blocking this, but it's just going to happen. Like, it's just going to happen. Best way to heal that this week, it's kind of funny that I said Uranus and Taurus, because this is the card of Taurus. We got Judgment, and we got the Hierophant in reverse, so there is a triggering that will be happening this week. I don't really like to, I'm not trying to predict death either, but I'm getting that message, like, just the word death came up. It's just hard. Like, some people will be turning into ancestors this week. it's just an upend of society. It's just like this is not a beat 'em and join 'em type of situation. Like, you can't, things need to be done differently, and they're not being done differently. So now a new tradition must be born, and it must be rebuilt. And in many ways, the way that happens is by removing the older generation. There's a lot of stuff going on. I feel like, I mean, I got this download a couple of weeks ago because I had gone to the cemetery with my girlfriend, and I am very sensitive in cemeteries. I get a lot of messages in cemeteries. I also got I got the messages of who was going to pass next year as well. Who's upcoming, who's going to be next, and like who's going to be next after the person who's next. Like, it was just like really intense. But it's kind of like that. It's almost like you could have caught the warnings, but you didn't. Like, this is a foreshadowing, which is very interesting because this goes back to last night's episode of Game of Thrones. There is a lot of foreshadowing that has been happening and will be happening this week for some people. I do see some people passing, though. There's just no way to avoid that. There are some people that will cross over. Some people that are going to have to do ancestor work to heal these connections as well, because there are some family trauma here as well. Some of this is necessary, though. Like, it's necessary on a generational level. It's just, I keep getting the word foreshadowing. And there's like there's a bunch of, well, not a bunch, but there's like these like, people put together how Arya was meant to kill, the Night King the whole entire time, and the foreshadowing that led to up there, and it's almost like nobody kind of saw it coming. Nobody even knew that it could be possible, but it happened, and it ended up being like so obvious that it was her that ended up having to be the one to kill him. I just keep getting foreshadowing. Like, we warned you, we told you, you knew. You could have done something about this, but now you're gonna have to deal with the consequences, is what I'm getting. So, yeah, lots of work to do this week. Definitely, there's a serious note to this week. Yeah, I'm getting the word pressure. It's just like, there's a lot of things. It's just gonna look like it's not fair. Something's just gonna look like it's coming out of nowhere, that it's not fair, but it's happening. It's almost like an uprising. I'm getting that word as well, especially with this. There's a lot of stuff going on in many areas. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this reading. I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe.